Okay, that preview didn't work, but it looks like I'm able to go live and I can sort of just see my reflection on this TV. I need to use it again later, so I decided not to go on that TV yet. And I was thinking of just pre-recording this using the software, but I guess that I didn't really get around to it yesterday when that would be like more ideal to do it. Let me see. I gotta type in the website. I had it on the other phone, but I don't want to pick that one up right now. Okay, so on Sunday's message, it was called "Just Keep Breathing," and we talked about anxiety and things like that, under mental illness, and how it's illness. So just like Jesus say, the sick need the doctor. It's like another thing that he kind of mentioned as part of that is that people don't necessarily choose to be sick. Sometimes it just happens upon you. I mean, even with COVID, right? Like nobody intentionally chooses to have COVID. I mean, you might make decisions that increase your risk of catching COVID, but you don't actually. I don't think anybody, like, if they know that somebody's infected, they intentionally trying to get COVID. I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible, but most people probably don't try to get COVID. So it just kind of, it's something that kind of just happens. Like you might catch COVID but I guess like the reason why I think of COVID is because the title is called Breathe and Don't Stop Breathing. And, you think about like, COVID is one of the things that can stop you from breathing. So if you intentionally catch COVID, then you might stop breathing. Well, potentially, depending on how sick you get. And like and one of the other things that was covered in this message is that like if you choose to keep breathing, you're choosing life. You're not choosing suicide. And also how like breath is actually can be like, it regulates you, like when you keep on breathing or you just breathe, or obviously there's like meditative breathing and meditation, or also like taking deep breaths supposed to like lower your heart rate. Yeah, like I heard that like the way that they told me before is like if you take a deep breath and you hold it for a bit and then you let it out slowly, that generally that procedure will lower your heart rate. Not necessarily um, like like a severe change, like I guess if you can't really do it when you're having a heart attack, but what I mean is they won't necessarily put away a heart attack, but it would basically slow it. Like when you slow down your breathing, it kind of slows down your rhythm a little bit. So that kind of brings your heart rate down. It's supposed to obviously can give you like a bit of like a physical relaxation if you're like under high stress or whatever. And I think like maybe it's like something people can do like to wind down after heavy exercise too. Maybe I don't know. I don't really know all the logistics. Anyway, so the scripture is Mark 7:31-35. Then Jesus left the vicinity of Tyre and went through Sidon down to the Sea of Galilee into the region of the Decapolis. There some people brought him a man who was deaf and could hardly talk, and they begged him to place his hand on the man. After he took him aside away from the crowd, Jesus put his fingers into the man's ears. Then he spit and touched the man's tongue. He looked up to heaven and with a deep sigh said to him, Ephphatha, which means be opened. At this the man's ears were opened and his tongue loosened, and he began to speak plainly. So other references are Philippians 4:6-7, Genesis 1:1-2, Genesis 2:7, John 20:21-23, Mark 7:31-32, Mark 7:33. Oh well, Mark 7:33 is part of it here, and he took him aside away from the crowd and put his fingers. And so, and the other gospels are like Luke 7:34-35, Psalm 144:15, You can read this in the notes. I think I forgot to put the notes in the description, but it's the same link, wooschurch.com/crew, as all the other weeks. In case you didn't already know, that's where I get the notes from. So it kind of helps me. I don't have to really prepare something separate on my own. Although I do have to, come on and still do a recording. So the Genesis verses are also talking about like like in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. Sort of like like when when God opened his mouth, he created everything. He spoke things into being, and like this, like God's spirit hovered over the water. In Hebrew, the word for spirit is also in different contexts. Not like, so basically, they're not saying God's breath hovered over the water, but basically, um, they would say like they can use that word spirit, like on the different sentence to mean uh, breath. But again, that's the same with English, right? You'd have certain words where it might mean one thing in this sentence and another thing in a different sentence. So that's not necessarily, I don't think, it's to suggest that 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 they're interchangeable kind of thing. But I think like in some contexts, it's like kind of like when Jesus breathed, um, or when Jesus spoke, it's kind of like when Jesus uses his breath, it can bring life, kind of thing. That's kind of what they get to. So, and I think like in some cases, like there is some relations, but what I'm saying is like just using the word in a different sentence. Um, like for example, like I saw a rainbow. Like I saw, like it's the saw in that case means to see something like in the past tense. But you can also say I cut down a tree using a saw. But like 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 it's the same spelling, but different meaning when you use it in a different like sentence structure, right? But the thing, like the word saw, it doesn't mean like, okay, so oh, when you see something with your eyes, you're cutting it with your eyes, right? Kind of thing. So like I don't think there's like any relationship necessarily per se. It's just that the word happens to be used in different situations to mean different things. So that's what I'm saying. So not necessarily all the time, when you have a word that's used in a different context to mean something else, that implies there is a relationship between those two words. So I think like that kind of carries over to different languages. It's not necessarily just because they use that word to mean also this somewhere else, then there's necessarily any correlation between the two. In some cases, you might have different definitions for the same word that are similar. So they, it is okay, if I use it like in this way or this context, it means kind of like this. Maybe like the word see and seeing. It's a slight different variation of see is see. Like again, like I said about Saul, but this one is actually related. So like I'm seeing the big picture. So I'm starting to understand the big picture. So in a way, like like seeing is like sort of like perceiving. So they kind of using that word sometimes as perceiving, sort of. Like anyways, jumping to the main idea. Many of us might be able to recall falling and scraping a knee or elbow as a child growing up. Perhaps this is one of the first anxiety-inducing experiences some of us has had, as we felt the pain, fear, and tremor setting in. Thankfully, if a good parent or guardian was around when this happened, we can probably also recall the comforting and soothing experience of them breathing or blowing on our wounds. Then suddenly everything seemed to be right with the world again. Okay, so they're kind of saying, blowing the into our wounds. Sometimes we face seemingly impossible circumstances that literally and figuratively wound our minds, hearts, and bodies. Life will often force us against the wall, presenting giving up as the only viable option. Whether it's losing a job, dealing with a sick one, having personal health issues, or grappling with marriage struggles, it is important for all of us to know that God has not left us. He breathed life into you. And he's not done with your story. Our breath is a gift from God. Remember, God loves you and he cares about your mental health. Don't stop breathing. It's always too soon to quit. So don't stop breathing. Keep on living, kind of thing. Breath is a gift from God. Throughout scriptures, we are given a plethora of examples of God using breath to create, bless, transform, steady, and heal us. Breath is a gift from God that anchors us back to his peace in times of chaos, distress, and unease. Recognizing our breath as a gift reminds us of the nearness of God. Anxiety attacks our breath, and depression slows our breath. However, we can take comfort in remembering that God's breath hovers over the chaos, and that on the other side of chaos lies creation. Then God formed the man from the dust of the ground. He breathed the breath of life into the man's nostrils, and the man became a living person. That's what Genesis 2:7, right? So he breathed his breath. Our breath anchors us in the present moment. Breath is always available and teaches us to let go. The Spirit of God breathes on us and is our greatest comfort and counselor. Creation comes from chaos. What are some ways you combat anxiety in your own life? I guess for me, a big one of combating anxiety is like just getting exercise. And I think like exercise like kind of serves like a few things. Like even though like when I was at Home Depot, I would actually while I was exercising, like in between sets, I would read some of my textbooks. So I don't necessarily think that that's wrong in any way. It's just kind of like something like, when you're exercising, I kind of feel like it's different. Like when I was playing hockey before, and that obviously I can't be reading when I'm playing hockey, but it's something okay, I'm working out, I'm waiting between sets. I can read a page or something while I'm waiting, right? So I think like that's fine for me. I mean, although like I was gonna say that sometimes when you're exercising, it kind of just it's like a shift away from your responsibilities. Like you could be spending that time and actively choosing, well, in the case of hockey, like I said, I can't be reading at the same time. I gotta focus on the game. It's like you shift your focus, or you give your mind a break from your other like responsibilities and your other like things that might be not going as well as you hope. And I think like, but I think like just exercising, because of the way it modifies your breath, it kind of helps you to breathe heavy and just get rid of that anxiety and stress. So I really feel that exercise has been a big help in my life. And just like I think like just talking about things sometimes helps too. Although like what I don't really use that as often nowadays. I don't really feel like I'm talking about stuff. And like I've heard also like, even though yes, I agree that it is good to talk about things, but like I've also been told like sometimes talking also forces you to bring things to your mind. So some people like maybe it's better to just write it down as well. So like so for some people, like they tend to like, because they have that routine, right? Like when you want to remember something, but you don't want to commit it to your memory, so you just write it down, and then you commit it to paper, but you don't have it in your head anymore. For so some people, writing things actually helps, because like maybe like they can write about it and then forget about it, right? I'm not suggesting necessarily like some people say, oh, you write it down and you burn it, kind of thing. I don't know. That's not me. Like I don't use that tactic. But what I'm saying is that like some people like after writing things down, it kind of helps them to kind of think it through, and then they kind of think that and also I think it gives a sense of completion, right? It's like, okay, I thought about this already. This is my thoughts on this issue, and I'm gonna lay it to rest, like kind of like hand it in, and then and that's it for now. At least like it may not solve the issue, but it kind of gives you that procedures. Okay, I worked through this, I worked on this, and then like I don't have to worry about this right now. So I don't have really too much to say about that question. So that's all I'm gonna say on that one. And number two, it's not a sin to be sick. We live in a broken world, and at some points in life, we all likely experience brokenness. The truth is that our brokenness doesn't define us. For too long, mental illness has been ignored or treated as a personal problem, or weakness of the individual. Illness is not a moral failing, but it does require a healer. Jesus loves you too much to leave you as you are. He meets you where you are to bring you real peace. Silence doesn't protect you. What you can't talk about controls you. Crowds won't heal you. The crowd inspires, but Christ heals. Medicine can benefit even if the medicine you need may not be the medicine you want. Sickness is not weakness. Sickness is not your identity. How can you struggle your daily routines and boundaries? So this is the question. How can you structure your daily routines and boundaries to help with managing stress, anxiety, and even depression? Well, for me, like right now, recently, like I said I'm playing Fortnite, so I kind of do that, especially at nighttime. So I think like it's just kind of get into routine. It's like before bedtime, for at least an hour. I'm not gonna concern myself too much about my responsibilities. I'm just gonna play some Fortnite, before bedtime, and so like it kind of like gives my brain a break from what I'm working on, and just that way, like even though like there's nothing wrong, I think if the last thing you do before you go to bed is just work on your assignment up to the point, and then it's like, all right, that's all I'm going to do today, and then just go to sleep. But I think like for me, I just start to develop a routine that's something like certain times of the day I'm just gonna relax, and I'm not gonna work on my responsibilities. So like I'm just gonna like kind of just do that for a little bit, and just focus on that. And I think like um yeah and like I guess like just like kind of like just managing things and trying to like like another thing that I like to read a book to kind of work on my goalie skills, but I kind of do that while I'm driving. I have like an audio version that I recorded of myself reading it, and I just play that back to myself. So like in that case, like that makes it so that I don't have to spend time during my day to just read that book. I can just listen to the playback that I read it already, that the recording that I made. Kind of like I'm reading this stuff on the on the notes, and I'm making a recording, so you can play it back whatever, right? So like for some people, like they like to listen to stuff when they're driving. That's what I listen to when I'm going. When I listen to my goalie stuff um, the, at the times that I need to be driving. All right. Summary. In the world today, there can be a pressure to thrive. However, sometimes we face to face with a season where thriving is not the goal, and surviving is all we can manage. We survive by breathing, even if it's just a sigh. When we focus on breathing, we come back to the present, anchoring us to our Creator, the very source of life. In fact, every breath we take is saying God's name, Yahweh. Jesus is the only one who can truly heal us. It is important that we're going through a season of anxiety, that we break the silence before it breaks us. So speak up, even if your voice shakes, and run to the counselor and messenger of hope. God breathes divinity into the dirt and creates life in the middle of chaos. He loves you with an everlasting love. Remember, if all you did today was breathe, you are more than okay. So, in another sermon that wasn't really covered as much as here is, I think it was Rich as well. So he mentioned about like, the way you pronounce Yahweh kind of pushes you to inhale and exhale. I mean, I kind of feel that you do that with any word you say, but in particular, there he was saying that Yahweh is kind of forcing you, like to say Yahweh kind of forces you to like to take a breath in and breath out to say that particular word. So he talked about that, and that's why like I thought about it when they say that saying God's name. So like in fact, every breath we take is saying God's name, Yahweh. That's kind of like where they linked it there. So the call to action is take a few minutes to complete this breathing exercise. Remember to breathe deeply, inhale in grace, exhale worry. That was something that that they would talk about, like it's a breathing exercise. It's from what's it called? I'll click on it. So there's a link there on the notes. It's by Headspace, yes. So there's also other stuff on YouTube you can listen to, like Somebody told me about like what's it called, the Honest Guys. There's also like other I forgot what the other one's called, but anyways, there's like other videos, uh, like like other like meditation videos on YouTube you can also work on, if you want to just go on YouTube and look at that. There's I don't I'm gonna cut the video. There isn't a lot of announcements. I actually put on a lot of clothes today right now. It's great that finally it's not hot in the apartment. I think like people are like the heat has been on, but maybe the heater is broken, or people are just not turning it on because it's not necessary. 'Cause it really isn't. But also because it is colder outside, that I gotta start wear like it is like winter is coming, so I gotta start putting on a lot more clothes when I'm outdoors now. Definitely that's winter is kicking in. I mean, so I mean the winters are really not that bad. Oh, the other thing is like the when I read the weather report, they're saying, oh, we're not really gonna have much of a fall, but we didn't have much of a spring either. That's what I kind of find that recently with the climate change is that you might have like 1 or 2 weeks of like spring, or like fall, I guess. And then what it does, it just kind of jumps right into it. So like so what it is okay, we had summer, and then like we had a pretty long summer where it's like above 20 degrees or more for quite some time. But then it kind of gets to like 14, 12, 13, whatever. So that's like, I guess that would be fall, right? And then like pretty soon we're gonna have consistently under 10 degrees, well, Celsius, and then it's gonna just stay that way, for the rest of the winter. That's what I think that's what they're saying, right? So you kind of transition like very short fall and then right into winter under 10 degrees, maybe even under 5 degrees, or and into the negative sometimes, right? So it's kind of basically what it is. They just go right to winter. Basically, same thing with spring. Like it was like, it was like less than 10 degrees, and then maybe for like 2 weeks you got 15, 17, whatever, in betweenish 12 degrees weather, and then it was 20 degrees, and then it's maybe it also kept climbing to 30, whatever. But once you get to like 20 something degrees for like a whole week, basically the summer had arrived, and it wouldn't drop anymore. It would just stay there. Like it would always be like 20 something, maybe sometimes close to 30, for the rest of the summer. So basically, it's like after the like maybe like at most 3 weeks of like 10 to 15 degrees or 17 degrees, whatever, it would just jump to 20 something, and then it would just stay there for the rest of the summer. So it was a very short spring as well. And they say you have a very short fall when the weather's getting colder, and I gotta put more clothes on. That's all there is to that. All right, so thanks for tuning in. I have to cut it on that monitor, so I'm gonna look over there for a little bit.